Hello! In today's episode of Recipe for Friendship, we will talk about traditions and rituals of one of the biggest diasporas of Kazakhstan, the Russians. In one of the episodes, we talked about Butter Week, which is celebrated by Russians, Cossacks, Belarusians, and by many other ethnicities. And as we remember, after the Butter Week, there's a long and tough fast, Great Lent, a period of abstinence and austerity. So in today's episode, something about fasting food, its features, rules, and recipes. There's no fats without buckwheat, right? Sure, because it's very nutritious. It contains a lot of energy, and we're not on a diet. Do you understand? About difficulties of creation of a traditional Russian costume. We make up costumes. We have only one tailor, so we bother her, and she sews. What comes after Great Lent, and what is the most important holiday for Orthodox Christians? Of course, songs, dances, costumes, and crafts that everyone will enjoy. So you can meet representatives of almost 120 nationalities and ethnicities in our multinational country. But which diaspora is the biggest in Kazakhstan? Of course, we are talking about the Russians. Russians are the second largest ethnic group in Kazakhstan. According to the year 2015, about 20% of the total population are Russians, which is more than 4 million people. Most of them live in East Kazakhstan, Karaganda, and the Kostanay region, as well as in the two capitals, Astana and Almaty. Our meeting with the ensemble Sudarushka was held in the city Kapchigai, which is the core of the Russian cultural center of the Almaty region. However, earlier we already met the ensemble Sudarushka with their funny, short folk songs while we were celebrating Butter Week. Remember?
Как на масляную неделю из трубы блины летели, из трубы блины летели, да на масляную неделю.
And since after Butter Week, with its pancakes and joy, there is the longest Orthodox fast of the year, and it will be discussed separately. Talking about the largest, most significant, and most powerful diaspora of those that are represented in Kazakhstan, it is impossible, of course, not to say a few words about the Russian cuisine. And it's well known for everyone from childhood. Your grandmother, mother, or even you probably know some recipes. However, of course, there are some subtleties. That's why today, Zinaida Alexandrovna, the head of the Russian Cultural Center, will teach us to cook what? Vareniki. Since we are fasting. As I see, all the ingredients are appropriate. Yes, it's Great Lent, so we don't have any eggs, meat, and milk. Of course, nowadays, fasting restrictions are only conditional for lots of nations with Orthodox traditions. Not everyone follows the strict rules. However, the most pragmatic people can notice practical basis and traditions of Great Lent. In fact, after a long winter when the stocks of food are almost at the end and before the first fruits of spring are still far away, the villagers' lives depend on how thrifty, acute, and far-seeing they will be. In the religious aspect, and some historians believe that the history of the fast dates back as far as the 5th century, fast is to not only abstaining from food, but it's a training period of the spirit when non-domestic values should come forward. Nevertheless, domestic approach can make your fast more pleasant without violating the strict rules, which in past centuries were the same for all, were followed carefully. Today we'll prepare a very simple dish, vareniki. What with? They can be with cherry, with mushrooms, but today we have potatoes. Dough is quite easy, huh? Yes, salt, water, some flour. Let it rest for some time and we can start. And although it's important to remember that a fast is not a diet, people tend to think of it as an excellent opportunity to upload the body and give it some respite from tough meals of animal origins. I want to draw your attention to our table. There are for the most appropriate foods. Here we have pumpkin, don't we? With prunes, it's required. Also, we have fillings for vareniki, yes, fried cabbage. There's no fats without buckwheat, right? Sure, because it's very nutritious. It contains a lot of energy. And we're not on a diet. Do you understand? Life in the calendar year of the modern person, even living in the countryside, was built, of course, on the principles and laws which are very different from those in ancient times. However, about 100 years ago, following the rules from the church calendar was important for survival. Time of holidays and agricultural work, rest periods, or the season of courtship and weddings, everything was common and was done collectively. Such approach let people overcome and solve problems more easily and gave more fun to celebrate holidays. My mom always taught me, I'm from Semipalatinsk, my mom and my granny always taught me to do it like this. Talking about fasting cuisine again, it is worth noting, listed, potatoes, cabbage and buckwheat are favorite ingredients. What is in the decanter? We have kisel, cranberry. Because kisel is different, I mean from different berries. But today we have cranberry kisel. Cranberry kisel takes a special place among fasting food. It contains lots of vitamin C to recharge after a long winter. And as a nice drink on the table, alcohol is forbidden during the fast and of course as the dessert course because it's very tasty, sweet and fragrant. And while our vareniki is being cooked, let's listen to some folk songs. And at the same time, let's look at the dresses of our artists. Here, all the attributes of a traditional Russian dress: sundress, shirt, kokoshnik, bright colors, and incredible decor. We make up costumes. We have only one tailor, so we bother her and she sews. And if, among some ethnicities, some people are still wearing ethnical clothes in everyday life, in this case we can safely say Russian costumes today are preserved only as decorative detail for performances, national holidays, and the theater. So is the vareniki ready? Yes, piping hot. Well, everyone in Kazakhstan knows how to say good appetite in Russian. Looking at this table, you can see that even during the fast, when the ingredients that can be attributed to foods of animal origin are forbidden, dishes can remain nutritious and beautiful, and of course, still delicious. Bon appetit! Zinaida Alexandrovna told us that Russian Cultural Center of Kapshiga is turning 10 this year. It was created only because of enthusiasm and ardor of a few active people. This year, our Russian Cultural Center is turning 10. And it's very nice that people don't forget the culture, you understand. They don't forget and they come here, and what is more important is that young people also come. It's not lost. I want us to save it. We try to deliver this message to our children and grandchildren. We try so that they can enjoy it. Here at the Russian Center, our friends organized a small museum. Here, for example, a spinning wheel I brought from Semipalatinsk. I was born and raised there. I am from Semipalatinsk. This spinning wheel was in my mom's attic, so I brought it here. It was made in the 18th century. There's not a single metal nail, only wooden studs. There is no art or craft which is not familiar to Russian history and traditions. One of them is knitting, isn't it, Anna Nikolaevna? Russian women were always able to do something with their hands. They did everything themselves. Weaving, carpet making, and knitting, of course. Men were also very skillful. Russian crafts are the topic for a large and separate discussion. In fairness, many kinds of arts and crafts perfectly survive to this day. Moreover, in the 21st century, in the wake of the revival of interest in the old traditions, the interest in them is growing. Wood carving, weaving, all kinds of crafts from men and women, many of these genres are experiencing, let me say it in that way, the triumphant resurgence in everyday life. I understand that in the old times women knitted not in order to boast, but because it was a practical necessity. Of course, not only in Russia and many countries there was a tradition. Before you propose to a girl, you have to be sure that she is a good housewife. People say that earlier, little 12-age girls were able to do everything. Cook, sew, knit, take care of kids, and heat the stove. And everything in the house and on its inhabitants was handmade. Villagers knew each other well. They knew what this girl was capable of and what she could do. And if a guy proposed to her, he gave her his present. And she answered him with an embroidered handkerchief or socks or something else. But I didn't lead this conversation to a knitting lesson. In old times, as I know, no girls' gatherings occurred without singing. Yes, of course, it was so. The lyrics of this song were always very touching to me. I heard it many times in movies, at dinner companies, but no one ever sang it as you sing it, at least in my presence. Thank you, ladies. Thank you. After the Great Lent, when Orthodox Christians abstain from gluttony and entertainment for more than 40 days, comes the brightest, biggest, the most important holiday, Easter or Easter Sunday. The Old Testament Easter was celebrated in honor of the Exodus of the Jews from Egypt, which is of people getting rid of slavery. Hence the name of this holiday, Pesach, in Hebrew means past. days of the New Testament, Easter is celebrated as the resurrection of the crucified Christ. That's why people greet each other with words, "Christ has risen." The traditional response is, "He has risen indeed."
Христос воскресе! Христос анести! Христос резуррекси! Христос воскресе!
People prepare carefully for this day. They clean up their houses and upgrade everything. The festive divine service begins after midnight and lasts until morning. The residents of towns and villages, dressed in the best clothes, begin to celebrate. For Orthodox Christians, the holiday begins with visiting of church. However, even atheists don't mind to taste holiday food and have fun. The main meal of the day is brightly colored boiled eggs, which symbolize life, and special Easter pastry, kulich. There are plenty of recipes. It can be made of yeast dough or curd dough. There are even variants which don't include baking. But the appearance of kulich remains the same: cylindrical shape, white glaze on top, and colorful topping as a decoration. The words, the feast of feasts, the solemnity of solemnities, reflect high status of Easter as the main Orthodox holiday.
Христос воскресе! Христос воскресе! Христос воскресе!
והשקול בכלי זהב וכלים בגלים שונים ויין מלכות רבי יד המלך והשתייה גדלת נונס כי כן ניסת המלך עד קודם הפוליטה.
The Jewish Pesach, which in fact is the ancestor of Orthodox Easter, celebrated for several days in accordance with the milestones of the history of the exodus of the Jewish people from Egypt and deliverance from slavery. A detailed account of this tradition is waiting for us in one of the following episodes. Today, let me touch upon another Jewish holiday, which is considered one of the most fun, Purim. Unlike from Hanukkah, perpetuating the salvation of the people of Israel from the spiritual destruction, Purim symbolizes the struggle for physical survival of the Jewish people. Therefore, the celebration of Purim includes moments not only spiritual, but purely material, as if it were called to declare to the whole world, "Here we live, eat, drink, and be merry." Moshloach manot, dishes sharing with friends and family, and gifts to the poor, proves that an integral part of Jewish life is caring for others. Purim entertainment is also the kind of demonstration of the validity of Jewish people, and sometimes it is showed in quite an ironic way. Purim, it is the days of feasting and joy. Therefore, people set big tables in the afternoon. Evening meal is not enough. It is believed that in the midst of a meal, one should not distinguish the words, "Cursed is Haman," and the words, "Blessed be Mordecai." Commandment of sharing of food and gifts to poor people is the obligatory part of the holiday. Moreover, you should give presents at least to 2 poor people. For centuries, there was an extremely rich folklore associated with Purim. Among the sea of torment, anxieties, and trials surrounding the Jews all year, Purim stood as a lone island of reckless fun, humor, and optimism, characteristic of the Jewish people. Only in this day, theatrical performances with distinctive characters were allowed. For example, people choose Purim Rabbi, and by doing this, they could settle scores with those leaders of the community who they were mad at. Also, there is a tradition to bake sweet pies with poppy and sweets, which is called Haman's ears, or Ozni Oman for some reason. Of course, it is worth noting that in different communities, parts and features of the holiday may differ, but all of them have one basis. Well, a lot of interesting customs, holidays, traditions, and of course recipes wait for us in future episodes. Because it's Recipe for Friendship, see you soon.